All righty, seems like we are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Red Light Expose Live. We have a really good discussion for you here this evening that will be centered around Epstein and all the likes of him. So, thank you so much for joining us. I am Savannah. I was previously part of the FDS podcast, the Female Dating Strategy podcast. And I have been involved with the Red Light Expose since it started on that podcast as well. And I'm really excited to be joined by a really fabulous group of women to discuss this ever more important topic.
Thank you.
So should we just do a round of introductions? Because I'm not sure if our listeners are familiar with everyone. So Caroline, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
I live in Canada. I'm South African born, though. I'm a survivor of 8 years of human trafficking. And I work frontline with those who have been, are being, or at high risk of being trafficked. I run a page on Facebook with over 13,000 members, an educational page on HT. I received the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal for my work in this area, which at one time was kind of neat. But now with this Epstein stuff and Andrew, it's not that cool. But I will die on this hill. This is why I was trafficked, just so that I can do the work.
So Caroline, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Merly, Ellie, and I were talking about how much we wanted to get you on because you have so many years of experience and just you know this subject inside and out, and not just on the side of the horrors, but also we're always trying to come back around to what's next. What are the next steps? What do we do now? That the after process, and I'm excited to pick your brain about that as we talk about this. Hi, everybody. I'm Sybil Jo. I am a survivor of a little over 15 years in the sex abuse industry here in the southeastern United States. I'm also a mom of 4 recovering fundamentalist Christian nationalist. So I got a little bit of everything in there. I've swung to the left, I've swung to the right, and got dizzy with it all, and found my people here at the Red Light Expose, the only place that is having this roundabout conversation, not from the left, not from the right, but from the women involved. So Merly?
Can I just apologize? I'm getting hot flashes, okay? So you see me fanning.
That's fine, Caroline. Merly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Merly Åsbogård. I live in Sweden. I come originally from Colombia. I was, when I came here in 1986, I was in trafficking or prostitution or, whatever name you use for it, for 16 years. I entered as a child and came out as a very damaged adult. And I have been working with this or trying to make people aware, like through my Instagram page, who is mostly in Swedish, and just trying to get out there and, change public opinion. Because even though I am living in a country that has had the Nordic model since 1999, it's still an uphill battle to get a lot of things through. So this is me. I am super happy to be here. I'm super happy to have all of you here. Caroline, our guest, Savannah, our co-host that we've been talking so long about having you here too. And Sybil Jo and I, we are long runners now almost in the game. So yeah. Thank you for having me too.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, y'all. So Epstein, gosh, where do we even begin? I think I didn't actually make that connection when you said that you received the Queen's Award for your work in human trafficking, and then the stuff with Andrew.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I like to say Prince Andrew because he's still one of them. So I find that's quite ironic in many ways. And especially seeing as given, what we know, and it wasn't, Andrew wasn't the only royal involved with Epstein quite intimately as well. And I think for me, I just think the sheer scale of it, is absolutely horrific. I don't think there's a single industry almost that isn't involved in Epstein. You've got politicians, you've got even top lawyers, you've got royal families, you have celebrities. It's just the sheer scale of it, and I think for me the scariest thing is that there are many Epsteins in the world as we speak. I also volunteer for a rape helpline as well, and when we see stories like Epstein, the demand in terms of coming from survivors who need support just absolutely skyrockets, because so many women and girls see themselves, and also men as well, they essentially see themselves in those stories.
Yeah, that's why actually why I really wanted to have more talks about this, because for me this have been really re-traumatizing, and also that I don't know how to make sense of it. Even though I have all that experience, I don't know how to even start untangling in my head what this is about. You see these YouTube streamers and YouTube content creators, and they have read some of the files. I mean, I think we're talking about now something like 6 million files that has been released, and they think that is almost just as many still in there, and it's so horrific. But then you think, like, why do I think it's horrific? Because I know that there's these monsters in suits out there. But I think that the most horrifying is that, again, you have people, young women, young girls, who are reporting this, who are doing what the society tells them to do, and gets nothing. And some of them have already disappeared, or ended their own lives by their own hand. It's just horrible.
Yeah, and I know what you mean about it being re-traumatizing. Anytime, it's frustrating because anytime these stories come up, we're happy to see it being talked about because we know it's happening, and that's a positive thing. But at the same time, just being constantly reminded that this is what makes the world go round, and like you were saying, Savannah, the scope of this case and the scope of the global power network, all connected by this one pimp, right? He was the world's elite pimp. And it reinforces for me, I'm always coming back to, how does sexual abuse work in power dynamics to create power? And I think the fact that we are finally able to see this scale of how integral sexual abuse is to maintaining, as we shift globally towards authoritarian and especially here in the US, everything that's happening, which a lot of people are very shocked by, but I'm not, because in the state that I grew up, this has been standard for a long time. But like I said, I'm always coming back to what is the connection? Like, why do they need sexual abuse to create fascist states? And I think they do. And I think that is what I would really like the public, and especially people who consider themselves liberal, consider themselves progressive, and trying to make political shifts in their communities. I don't think that's possible without addressing sexual exploitation and really getting to the root of it and understanding how it's operating in our communities and our society.
There's two things that I really want to say. And first off is that I'm angry. I'm angry that no one has been convicted. No one's even been charged, never mind convicted. Okay, there's actually documented proof. There are survivors who are willing to testify, and no one is even asking them to testify. I want to talk about too how there is documented proof. I've seen it because I'm going through the files of young girls being physically tortured. Okay, Linda McDonald and Jean Sarson talk about non-state torture. No one's being charged with the torture of these children. Rape should be a charge of torture. No one has been charged yet for anything except for Matt Ghislaine. She's the only one that's actually doing any time for this, the single only one. And these CEOs of banks are stepping down because they made these mistakes. They should be stepping down shouldn't be an out. They should be being charged. And I'm angry. I'm really angry about this.
Yeah, agreed. It's almost like, the files have been released and then that's sort of it. But you would think that there has to be some sort of judicial element to all of this, but it just goes to show just how far it goes, right? Because if you then start prosecuting people, how quickly will the pack of cards come tumbling down?
Well, apparently rape is legal. Apparently child rape is legal, because if there are no charges and no convictions, it's legal.
Yeah.
Very, very simple as far as I'm concerned. And the world is watching. The world is watching, and so are other pedophiles and rapists. They're watching.
Yeah. I Caroline, I absolutely agree. And I Merly and I talked about this when we talked about the Sean Combs case. And I said,
yes.
I think that the purpose of bringing these cases up now, everybody's kind of treating it like, oh, we're moving towards exposure and justice. But I think the purpose is actually, like you said, to show us that it is legal. Yes, we understand that this is tied up into all of our systems, and that's the way it's going to continue to be. Like they want to show us what it is and get us used to the new reality.
Yeah. Although, having said that, it has actually been our reality all along. It's just that the rest of the world's becoming aware of it, but they don't care. They just don't care, because if they cared, something would be done.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Very, very simple. But I get very, very angry, and at times I have to stop doing what I do, exhale, and go for a walk and come back, because otherwise I'm going to hurt somebody. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it loud. Okay, I'm going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
But I think we're many that can relate to that. I just, one of the things I really have struggled with, both after my years as abused, but also through the work that I'm doing right now, is that where does this anger, like, am I angry at the rapist? Am I angry at all, like, the pimps? And a huge chunk, if not the majority, is my anger at the society. At everyone who knew, everyone who stood by, everyone who told me that it was my fault, everyone, because that is another level of, I don't know even know if I can find a word, but that is another level of anger in someone, because that's another level of betrayal.
It's complicity. Any form of silence is complicity. It's very simple stuff.
Yeah.
But you know what? What I know from the work I do, and what I know and is that our reality is that struggling with this is that the majority of purchasers have the power and the authority and the ability to do something about this, and they're not going to, because it upsets the status quo. And they don't want the patriarchal agenda tilted.
And we are just ships in a games, or what do you call it? Because they have showed us now the veil is off. The truth is out there, almost all the truth. We are waiting for another 6 million files. But they also show us really steadfast that they don't really consider raping and abusing and trafficking girls and women as a crime. And we've seen that through the court rulings throughout the years. I think in every single country on earth, that they don't really care. It's more of a, oh, we'll give you this. I actually had my rapist / pimp convicted, but when I go through my paperwork now, I can see that they're giving leniency because, I was a prostitute, blah, 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 blah. It's like it's in there. And that's when I was a child. Now I'm an adult. They don't care. They use us whenever it's political convenient, or they can just use us as, leverage or to get their hands on children. So I think that what I reached for conclusion is, fuck the judicial, I can't say that word, but fuck the judicial systems. I am done trying to pretend that they represent any of us, because they don't. And it's so clear they don't.
So it's interesting because I go through trial with many women, and they talk about justice. Now, justice, not for everybody, justice is not a legal issue. But what we're having to come, because we don't get it legally generally. For us, justice is just being able to live our lives now. And that's, for most of us, or many of us, not enough. But that is what justice looks for us, is being able to actually be alive. And that in itself is an issue.
And we know that many of our sisters don't have that privilege.
Yeah.
So it's a big win.
Yeah. So I was just telling everybody before you came on, somebody I was working with who became a very, very dear friend to mine, was February 17th, was murdered by a customer. Her body was interfered with, and she was placed in garbage bags, plural, and put behind a dumpster. Okay. Now, this is what you're getting at. Many don't get out. They just don't get out. They don't get any form of justice. And this guy was only charged with interfering with her body so far. Okay. So something has to come to a head. And I would have thought that would have been years ago, but we're not even there yet with the Epstein files as far as the public or those with the powers are concerned.
Agreed. And yeah, thank you. And I think, to me, it all sort of leads back to the way in which the sex industry, in quotation marks, is framed, and how sex work, in quotation marks, is framed. Because people like to say, oh, sex work, in quotation marks, is the oldest profession, as if A, that's a good thing, if that's even true, but B, it completely glosses over the fact that it is, likely the oldest form of exploitation. Because back in, say, 1766, I really doubt that women, bearing in mind women had no rights until the 20th century, the 20th century, that's when we started to get legal rights, at least enshrined in law. So you're telling me that a woman who has no legal status, no access to education, very dependent, is somehow in charge of her own destiny as a prostitute in 1766? That is absolutely absurd and ahistorical. What is more likely is that she was seen as a resource, that her body was seen as a resource, and she was pimped and trafficked out. That marriage itself, to some degree, is a form of trafficking, because if you look at it in its genesis, it is essentially transfer of ownership from one man to another. This is why, at least in the UK, up until very recently, on the marriage certificate, aka the receipt of transfer of ownership, you only used to have the father's details on there. The mother wasn't included in that under the parents. It was the dad only. So marriage in itself is technically a form of human trafficking, because the whole purpose was for the woman to go from her father to her husband's property and to bear him children, just so he could pass down property and his genes.
Savannah, something interesting. I've done the research. Actually, the oldest profession on the planet is tool making. I've done the research. Okay, so that whole thing.
I can believe that.
Whole prostitution thing, it doesn't wash, because it's also not true. Tool making is the oldest profession. So when people throw that at me, I actually I give them the vomit sign, and then I explain to them that it's actually tool making from the caveman, Neolithic times. It's tool making, not even farming. It's tool making. So people need to take that argument, because it serves their purpose to use it.
No, but it's the same. It comes from the same lying machinery. They lie to us. They lie to themselves, pretending like this is something we want to do. I have seen this so closely, like you all have, that they want to believe, even rape, when you see everything that goes into a cultural movie, blah, 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 it's still eroticized.
Yep.
It's still borderline. Not, we have some fringe movies, of course, but it's still very much in people's minds. I believe that it's an uncomfortable experience, but it's not detrimental. Like, it's not that bad. So when they treat girls like women all of a sudden, and when they refuse to, like in Sweden we have, I think it is something like, oh God, I'm eating at them, but I think it is something like 5% of all cases that's being reported are going to trial. I think something like that. I might be wrong. I know it's less if I'm wrong. So they don't care. But I also want to ask you, guys, when you see all these layers to it, and as we said, no convictions other than Ghislaine Maxwell, and you see all this, we have Virginia Jeffrey, who wrote a book. We talked about that. We have survivors. We have one survivor who stands, and I don't know if you've seen that clip. She screams like in Spanish or Portuguese. They're eating people.
Yeah.
They're eating people, and she has been missing since, I think it was like the day after or something.
Yeah.
It's like, what do we think is happening? Like, what can come from this?
So, Merly, on my page, I have many Epstein survivors, okay? And not all of them are public, so I'm not going to name names. But to what you're talking about, I keep an eye on them. If I don't hear or they don't comment in days, I'm all over it. I'm looking for them because of what you're saying. How many that we don't even know about are gone? I mean, they're searching the Zorro Ranch right now for 2 Spanish girls that they're saying that were strangled to death during rough sex. Okay, they weren't strangled to death during rough sex. They were murdered. Okay, the language isn't appropriate. These were young girls, children potentially. I don't know their ages, that were murdered, and only now they're looking for the bodies. But the problem is here too is that ranch was bought by a Trump supporter in 2023. Okay, and he started demolishing the buildings and stuff. So good luck finding them. But they weren't just strangled to death during rough sex. They were murdered. Language matters. Language matters. And you were talking about rape. Even so many of the liberal feminists.
Oh my gosh.
Rape is bad. But when it's rape and pornography, oh, well, that's empowering. Come on.
Yeah.
This
infuriating.
Yes. A good percentage of people, women and girls and boys now are being trafficked through pornography. And the thing about this pornography is that men who are watching it and pleasuring themselves are watching an actual crime scene. And they're getting off to an actual rape. And even after that victim is dead, they cannot escape it because people are still watching their rapes. Language matters. It's not pornography. It's filmed prostitution. Language. We have to shift the cultural mindset here. And it's going to take, I'm older now. I don't think in my generation, in my time, I'm going to see it. But we are laying the foundations and the pavements and the stones for the generations coming up behind us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Podcast and by doing the educating. And I'm sick of picking up the pieces of what's left of these women after the industry has spit them out. We have to stop it. And we stop it by stopping the demand. Because Epstein wouldn't have happened if there weren't men prepared to buy those girls or do those things to those. So
and I'm really glad you touched on that, Caroline, because that, for me, that's the crux of the issue. Ultimately, what the prostitution industry teaches men is that women are for sale. All women and girls are for sale. Every single one of us is for sale. It's not just about, oh, well, men will only approach, a prostitute if they want to pay for sex. No, they see that as, and this is something that we spoke about a lot in FDS, is that we saw the way that men would interact with women, and they would almost treat, I suppose, as they would say, they would always, it's almost like, hey, they would see, they'd basically see all women as a free prostitute, basically. And that sort of attitude would bleed into their dating. This is why we'd come across women who would be, strangled during sex without being ask for permission, or they'd be into
Yeah.
BDSM, or they would be doing, extremely aggressive stuff, even the
Yeah.
way, because they just didn't see, they just see every single woman, and the porn industry promotes this as being sexually available and for sale. So when you were saying that these men were, buying these poor trafficked, women, that's ultimately what it comes back to. You cannot separate the two. You
Nope.
cannot separate the pornography industry from
Nope.
the prostitution industry, from what happened with Epstein. And
Nope.
that will make people feel very uncomfortable, because people like to say, oh, well, if I'm a prostitute, then it's because I've chosen it, it's a choice and all that. But ultimately, it feeds into a macro system. And quite frankly, men don't give a shit if you've consented or not. They don't
Nope.
give a shit.
Nope.
That isn't a get out clause. You saying, well, my situation is different. They see every woman as being for sale and available to be bought, even if it's against their will. And in fact, a lot of them, they prefer it if it's against their will, because it's the power. That's what they get.
So
Is essentially what they get off on.
I love what you're saying. I co-facilitated the Sex Buyers Accountability Program, aka the John School, for over 15 years, and it was a court-mandated diversion program for men who are.
Oh my gosh!
Who I worked with the perpetrators. Okay, it was a court-mandated diversion program for men who are arrested, first offense, communicating for the purpose, and the goal was to educate them. Okay, now people talk about that it didn't work. It's very hard to talk about recidivism rates when there aren't enough John stings. Okay, having said that, I would say to them things like, would you leave your mother, daughter, sister, aunt, or niece on a dark alley and drive away at 3 a.m. without another thought to her? And to a man, they would get offended at me and go, no. And I'd give it a minute and I go, well, why'd you do it to her? Because we have to humanize the women, because they don't see us as human. We are orifices to be used and disposed of. I would say, so they would say, well, I'm helping put food on the table. Oh, so you care about her? Well, yeah. I said, well, why'd you put your dick in her mouth? Why didn't you give her the food? And so it's a full day, and we told them how they're also socialized, because, when you go out in the street, billboards are saying, if you use this deodorant, the woman will come for you. They are also socialized. Nobody is born thinking like that. This is something that they're taught and socialized. So we have to rewire their brains, just like with the pornography. And at the end of the day, and it was a very intense day, and we didn't give them an inch, I would get, without fail, at least one man, sometimes with tears in his eyes, coming up to me and saying, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And I would say, I get that we don't know what we don't know. And I get that when we know better, we do better. What I don't get is why you didn't know. We women are 50%, at least, of this planet. We gave birth to 100% of it. I don't care how much socializing is out there. Is there not a single woman on this planet you give a damn about? And what does it take for you to give a damn about her? For you to be arrested and maybe never be able to cross a border again? Is that what it's going to take? And apparently it is. Okay, so we have to start with the youth. So when I go in, I do I've spoken to over 20, 30,000 people now publicly. I go into schools, and when I work with the youth, especially the male youth, I talk about what healthy relationships are supposed to look like. Okay, because they're not role modeled at home. Because dads know, they're not learning it at home. I talk about consent. I talk about what are your values? What's your value? Because if you don't know what your values are, you can't build boundaries. You can't learn consent, all that kind of stuff. So it's all we have to go to the root. And this is working with the children. Right? We have to work with these kids so they don't grow up like this. Sorry, that's my rant for the day.
No, thank you, Caroline. And it's so interesting what you said, that it basically took them almost having their life destroyed and getting arrested, getting a criminal record before they started to give an inkling of a crap about these women. And it also goes back to when the no fap movement, when men decide to swear off pornography and masturbation. It's quite rare for their reasoning to be, I'm not doing this because I don't want to objectify women, or that the prostitution industry is exploitative to these women. That's rarely the reason. All their reasons for stopping are self-serving. I'm getting addicted. I've got erectile dysfunction. I can't look at women properly. It all tends to be about how it's impacting them, and never really about the actual victims in the scenario, which is prostituted women.
You're making me laugh. These guys would tell me I need variety. So you know what I would say to them? Use the other hand. Use the other hand. Okay.
Yeah.
Or use your imagination. The imagination is endless. is endless. You can dream up of infinite scenarios with your and it's also, again, goes back to language. Caroline, what you said about language is so true, because the way pornography has been conflated with masturbation. So if you say, right, I don't want my partner watching porn, almost definitely somebody will come back to you and say, oh, what, so they can't masturbate? I'm like, but masturbation is not the same as porn. You know, you can do one without the other quite easily. They're not synonymous. But people in their mind, they genuinely believe if you say, I don't want a partner who watches porn, they're saying you cannot masturbate, which is not the same thing at all.
No. Sorry. I just want to say, you're talking about choice, right? I would say to these men, okay, because they were saying, well, she's there by choice because I didn't see a pimp or a trafficker. Okay, so you've lost your job. The mortgage hasn't been paid in months. The kids haven't had a proper meal in days. And you turn around and you look in the driveway and there's your BMW. Are you choosing to sell it, or did you have no other choice?
Very good point.
Light goes off for some of them. Okay, the bulb goes on. Boom.
Yeah.
But I got to equate.
That's one of our catchphrases here: is poverty is the pimp.
Yes.
But also, like, the only person who actually had a choice is the buyer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I have a lamp to give more light and it just fell on my face. I'm fine. I just have a bad setup here.
Can you say something? I love you guys. I love you.
We love you too, Caroline.
We love you too. But also, I wanted to have talk about something. First of all, porn and prostitution, two major organized crime, that happens out, in the world, and it's, for me, very, very. We're not talking about it as organized crime. It's very confusing to me because I have all the things that denominates organized crime, but also that I wonder if the reason why we are not being listened to in this and taken seriously. This is my wondering. I'm not saying that we should do it, but our reaction to what's happening is not normal for men.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if men were put through half of this? They would be burning things. They would be, killing people. They would be outraged. And we are outraged.
Yeah.
But we are also still just asking pretty much not to kill us, asking us not to buy children. I wonder where are we hitting that limit where we stop asking and start demanding?
Yeah. So Merly,
it's true.
You made a very valid comment. Now, when I finish my talks, I tell, especially at the sex buyers, I say, listen, men, it's time for you to stand up and be accounted for and be held. Stand up and be counted. Now it's your turn. Hold your peers responsible. And yes, you're going to get pushback, but my God, you're not going to get murdered like us. Stand up and be counted. Time to stand up. And I don't like the term man up because it's sexist also, but that's something they relate to. Okay, man up. Man the fuck up. Excuse me. Sorry. But
I've said worse on the live stream. Don't worry.
Okay. I don't like that term because it's. I don't like that term, but you know what? They get it. Okay, it's time for you to stand up and be counted, and they're not listening to us. So you have to. You should have done it a long time ago, but it's time. It's past time for you to speak up.
And in regards to the term "man up," men often use the idea of like what it means to be a man in contrast to being a woman.
Yeah.
But in my mind, man is a contrast to boy.
Yeah, true.
Act like an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I like that.
So yeah, man up.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So
mommy's not here to clean up the mess.
You're saying, Merly, they would, if it was happening to them, they'd be out killing. Well, they already are, but the thing is that when we go on a first date, we're afraid. He's afraid that he's not going to like us. We're afraid he's going to kill us.
Or he's afraid he's going to have to pay the bill.
Exactly.
What an oppression.
Yeah. Not get any. Yeah.
No, it's completely true. Like it's what I mean. This network for we're trying to spread awareness about the Nordic model, and I made a suggestion. I said, why don't we do like public actions but we don't have to be there. Like we can put up effigies or statues or whatever, and just provoke, thought and provoke, action or just thinking. And the reaction was like, oh, no, we can't do that if people want to take us seriously. And it's like, well, we have been talking, and we've tried that for a couple of decades. We have launched so many reports and, everything to try and sway their minds. We have to realize we've reached a point where they don't want to.
So, Merly, you made a really good point. But the thing is, people take Banksy seriously. He does exactly that. Banksy, the artist, Banksy?
Mm-hmm.
They're taking him seriously. So I call it guerrilla activism. I've made banners, massive banners that I hang off bridges saying, if you buy sex, you are creating human trafficking. I'm hanging them off bridges. I'm hanging them off the sides of buildings. I shouldn't really be saying this out loud because it's illegal, but you're right, Merly, you're right. It's time. That's where we're at. That's where we're at.
Unreasonable. This is like the baseline. Basic human rights. Sorry.
I was going to say as well, I think, and I'm really loving what everyone's saying here, something that FTS did, and it didn't make us popular at the start, but we got sick of appealing to men's better nature, and we just went, I suppose, like radical, and we perhaps invoked quite different tactics. So one of them that we always said is that shame is a very good social regulator. So if women refuse to date, or if they refuse to deal with men who watch pornography, who've bought prostitutes, the attitudes will change really quickly, because ultimately men, they want to be around women, right? Men seem to, despite their general hatred of women, they seem to spend a lot of their time and energy wanting to be around us and lamenting when they're not. This whole male loneliness pandemic, why is the solution never for men to just get more friends, other male friends? It's always basically, I'm lonely because women don't want me. It's like never so I suppose in that regard, women do have quite a lot of power in that. If we refuse to tolerate men who watch porn, which unfortunately, like, the liberal feminists are not helping at all on that front. If we refuse to deal with men who buy prostitutes, if we just refuse to deal with men who so much as defend an act of sexual violence in any way, then the tables will turn. I do think that shame is a huge social regulator. And I saw this when in the UK now, you have to verify with your credit card or with your email address if you want to access a porn site. And I remember when that law came in, there were lots of people, the same people who were like the pornography is normal crowd, were like, I don't want to give my credit card details to this because I don't know. And it's like, well, if pornography is normal and natural, then why are you ashamed if people find out that you watch it? So it's not. So
cognitive dissonance. Yeah. Everything y'all are saying is just brilliant. And it all, I love how when we have these conversations, it always like connects and ties back together. Savannah, what you were saying about the quote unquote left, the liberal idea of sex work as work and it's just normal. And to me, that is so obviously such a fundamentally conservative idea. I mean, it is the exact same message as the far right, which is there are certain women that we kind of treat as people. They're second class people, but they're people. And then there are some women who are not people. And the women who are not people, you can do this to. So and the women on the left, they really don't realize, like you said, to the men, it's all women. It's whoever you can do this to. That's how you become the non-people, is if he's able to do this to you. Whereas the women think, oh no, if we have this separation, I've seen so many liberal women say, why didn't he just go pay a sex worker? No, there's the separation. There are these other women who aren't people. And going back to the oldest profession thing, somebody in the chat said the oldest profession is healer, midwife, and religious leader, all often female dominated. And and that's so obviously true, right? Before we even could make tools, but we don't think of, we started at tools because that's the external, what we can see. But before humans were able to make tools, somebody had to nurture and care for them for up to 20 years, right? We have the longest juvenile period of any mammals. And so the first work that needed to be done was care work, and that was done by mothers and women. And but of course, to the patriarchal mind, the oldest profession, they say it's prostitution, but it's actually the pimps, right? It's actually the men selling women, the traffickers. So to them, their society didn't start until they started selling women. So it is kind
100%.
of true. It has an internal logic, right? That of course they would say it's the oldest profession because everything their mothers did before that is garbage.
So it's interesting too, if sex is actually work. And so the liberals say it's not, you're not selling sex, you're selling a service.
Oh.
Now, if you think that too logically, that means if somebody selling sex is raped, he cannot be charged with rape. He's only charged with theft of a service. Okay, the logic doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't.
And if it's a legitimate profession, then in theory, because in Canada we have something called WHMIS, which is the health and safety standards, she or he, whoever's selling the sex, would have to wear a biohazard suit because of biological fluids. Okay, it's not a viable career. And it has an incredibly short shelf life. And with 20 years of doing this work, myself here included, I've personally never met a single person who ever got out with something to show for it. And when I mean something to show for it, I don't just mean, oh, they have a car. I'm talking about a pension, a retirement. I'm talking about, you know what I mean? It's not acceptable in any way, form, or fashion. And any man who does this, who buys sex, is contributing to her downfall. Because where's she? I got women who've never worked a real square job. They're like 20, 25. Who's going to hire them? They never got through school. They don't know. I run this exit and aftercare program, and one of the things I do is help these women and young women transition back into mainstream society, because the rules that are required to survive in that world do not do well in the boardroom. Okay, you can't tell your boss to F off, okay, and get away with it, okay? So it's like taking somebody who lives in European country and dropping them in the middle of Mongolia and saying, there, go prosper. They don't speak the language. They don't know the lay of the land. They don't know a single person. They don't know the cultures. You can't expect that. It's not a viable career choice in any way, form, or fashion.
I mean, I can remember when I said on X, and I got absolutely dragged for this, but people were not really understanding my point, was that if sex work is work, in quotation marks, then, you know, your boss asking you to suck his dick is the same as him asking you to make a cup of tea. Because if you're saying that, and I was absolutely dragged for it, because women were like, no, that's different. If they want that, they'd go to a prostitute. I'm like, well, actually, no. I mean, if it is just work, if it's the same thing as, you know, making a cup of tea, being a barista, doing any other job, then it wouldn't be sexual harassment if a man off the street or your boss asked you, would you suck my dick?
Yep.
I mean, you can say no, but then we have sexual harassment laws, because we understand that sexual consent is governed by very different laws compared to other jobs, and for very, very good reason, to stop people from being coerced into sexual situations that they don't want to be in. And people's brains just short-circuited, but it's like, if you genuinely believe that sex work is work, then you wouldn't be offended if somebody at your job or your colleague, you know, just asked you, like, oh yeah, can you suck my dick? Because after all, it's just a job, right? It's just a job.
But that's a perfect illustration of what I was saying. It's just a job for those women.
Yeah, right? That's true. Yeah, not for me though. For
the women who choose it. And if a woman's in it, then that means she chose it. And Caroline, like you were saying, it's this self-fulfilling. So a woman's in it and she chose it, and it takes and takes and takes from her, so that she depends on it more and more and chooses it more and more. and reinforces this, okay, she's the kind of person who chooses this kind of thing. It creates an underclass of women. And Caroline, thank you so much for breaking all of that down, because it's not talked about enough. I love how you get into all of the different threads and how they connect together in a survivor's life. I think you had talked about teeth. We have teeth problems. Getting back into a square job. I mean, I used prostitution to be able to stay home with my kids and homeschool my kids. I was kind of they say you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. I was a hoe so I could be a housewife. And I didn't have a real job until my late 30s.
Yeah.
And that has been a major obstacle.
It's hard.
And so yeah, like I said, it's this reinforcing system that creates an underclass of women and then keeps that underclass of women in that underclass through a complex network of pressures. And then the liberal women say, but look, she's choosing it.
So to your point, I'm going to validate what you just said. So we know the average age now of somebody being trafficked, and we look at the Epstein situation, is 11, 12 years old, okay? So she's being prostituted, I use it as a verb, okay, until the age of 18. And all of a sudden, because up until then, everybody's feeling sorry for her. The minute she turns 18, they stop feeling sorry for her because she's choosing it. She's known nothing else. She's not choosing it. Come on. Merly, I'm sure you talked about this in England, didn't you? Does this ring any bells?
Yeah.
People, okay.
No, I do go on. Yeah, but I used to say that we are not born, we are created. We are created by a society that allows it over and over again. And also, we also have in our society, I want to see more research being done on this when it comes to girls and women asking society for help with food, with housing, with whatever. I meet so many who've been flatly denied, myself included. And even though I live in Sweden, as I said, I've spoken to women all over the world and girls who are teenagers, who said that they get no help.
Yeah.
And that makes me think: is it because they think that we should be out there on the streets? Because when it comes to men, and this is where I think that if we had proper research done on the division of government funds, how it's distributed to who, we'll see that men and boys will be the major part. And they will say, but it's because we are more, victims of crime, we're perpetrators of crime, and we are out there on the streets, blah, blah. No, I think it's just because we think that society have an obligation to help you. We don't think that society have an obligation to help girls and women, because we have this, they can help themselves. I don't know. I feel like maybe I shouldn't brought this up, but I remember being 18 years old, trying to leave prostitution, going to a social worker, talking about how I wanted to leave. And she started asking me questions, and, I answered them. I was so tired. I'd already been in the industry for a little over 4 years. And she started with her, I don't know how do you call it, calculator. And then she said, well, you have made too much money. You're welcome to apply in 3 months. So it was seen as, a proper income I've had for 3 months. I should have been able to, save some of that and just save myself. So another 3 months, of course I didn't go back. And of course it took me like 10 years more just to get to that point where I was ready to, quit. Because, sorry.
You were forced back into prostitution. Yeah. You were forced back in. Yeah. I just read an article, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong here. In Belgium, if a person who is selling sex has a manager, and that person refuses a sex act, I can't remember, it's 6 to 10 times, she can be brought up before the tribunal. Okay. What the hell is happening to this planet?
Yeah, I don't remember where it was, but please help me with this if you know. But it was somewhere in Europe where it's legalized, and I'm thinking maybe in the Netherlands, where they tried to lower the age of when you're allowed to go into prostitution. And their argument was because it would help with housing, because teenagers who run away can easily, support themselves and get housing. That was their argument,
Oh
was
my God.
lowering.
So I
Oh my
But I'm not
God.
sure if it was Netherlands. I think it might, one of those.
a woman in Germany went to the social work office and said, I need help with food and stuff. And they said to her, we cannot help you. The brothel down the road is hiring. Okay, now I went and researched this and I found it. I can find the article again, okay, because this just blew my mind off my shoulders.
Mm.
At this stage, at this point now, the state is the pimp.
Yeah.
The state is the pimp.
Yes.
Where it's legal.
Yes. And it always has been. And that's when you were saying earlier about the justice system is not going to work for us, because the justice system, the state is the pimp.
Uh-huh.
And that is where patriarchal state power comes from. That's why I keep coming back to, I don't believe they could do what they do without the sexual abuse, without having a class of sex slaves.
This is how Epstein got away with it, and is technically still getting away with it.
And all of them. And
how and why.
Just like the title of this live stream, they're everywhere. Monsters in suits. Yep. I knew them for 15 years. I was very proud of myself I was a high class hooker. I was a sex positive. I made my decisions about who I saw and who I didn't see. And I only saw like normal, regular, integrated into the community CEOs, ambassadors.
Yeah.
And because they were so normal, that was how I understood it. I was like, Johns aren't bad guys. They're normal guys.
Yep. So,
and they're everywhere. And they're the ones that run all of the
everything,
whether it's in government or in capitalism. They're all connected, and it's a pimp network. Yep. Everybody is making money. Everybody is making money off of this. And so I love the work that a lot of our sisters do in law and in politics and on these big scales. I think it's very important. We talked to Wendy Murphy. That was a great conversation. She works here in the United States to get women equality under the law. We do need those reforms. But that's never going to solve it. It's going to have to be us on the ground making it impossible for them to do this. And I love what you were saying about hanging banners. I would like to hear more, Caroline, about what we can do on the ground and fighting it, but also providing services.
Yeah,
like you said, Merly, they are going to keep it. It's the same here. Any kind of quote unquote welfare service or benefit that even is available, which is very, very tiny where I live, but it's designed to keep you at this low level. And it's mostly women and children make up the world's poor, right?
Yeah.
And
I think
they're going to keep us there, and we're going to have to do it for each other. We're going to have to build these networks, and women have done it generation after generation after generation, and it can be frustrating that we have to reinvent the wheel. But what else are we going to do?
I want to point
out
something very quickly. In Germany and Amsterdam, they want, when you legalize prostitution, organized crime comes in and takes over. 88% of the known 400,000 people that are selling sex in Germany right now are trafficked. 88% of them. Okay, the big issue here is the government is talking about rescinding legalization, but they can't, because the taxi drivers, the restaurants, the hotels, all these offshoot industries.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's astonishing. It's astonishing. And again, the state becomes the pimp. Sorry.
So what do we do? What do listeners, so people are sitting here listening, and I'm always like, wherever you are, there's something that can be done. Caroline, can you tell us more
Yes.
about like
Yeah,
what
so
you do with survivors and peers?
when I do my speaks, the very last thing I say to audiences, and I've spoken to, like, my biggest audience was 1,000 at one time. I said, if the only thing you do is tell someone else you've done something, okay? But really, we have to start with the youth, and we have to talk to them and educate them on what healthy relationships are supposed to look like. Okay, so because then this won't occur. They won't think that purchasing sex is acceptable. They won't think that rape is acceptable, because it's not. But the thing is that they haven't learned that. They shouldn't have to, but they do. They have to learn it, and we have to stop dating men who use porn or filmed prostitution. And I have a friend, okay, maybe some of you know her, I'm not going to name her name, who was being trafficked in filmed prostitution. She was being forced to do a double anal. Her anus prolapsed, and she started bleeding internally. She passed out from the pain. They continued to film for another 6 minutes, okay? And that footage is still out there. Stop dating men who use porn. Very simple.
And again, I always say it, I hate that it falls on women's shoulders. I hate that. Yeah, I really, there are men that are involved and that are doing good work. And I do have a couple good men in my life that are very supportive. But for the most part, this is going to have to be women. And about the youth, I always want to take any chance I can to brag on my kids, because they're entering young adulthood. My daughter just turned 18. And she and I have these conversations all the time, and she has these conversations with her peers. And really, it's a mother's dream, right? For our daughters to be able to learn from our mistakes and not have to learn it the hard way. And that's so heartening to me. I always think about this next generation. And I think the generations, the girls coming up, they're hearing a lot more than we did. For me, I nobody was talking about this. These ideas were not out in the zeitgeist. And I know I've heard about Gen Z boys kind of turning towards more conservative, but I think the girls are paying attention and they're listening to us. And
yeah, but they're not the problem.
They might just change this world. They're not the problem. And that's why I say I hate that it falls on women's shoulders, but it does.
Yeah, but
we're not the problem, but here we are, and all we can do is fight because the battle is on us.
When I speak to high schools and university classes, I say to the boys and the young men, I say, how many of you think that selling sex and doing prostitution is empowering and it's good? And all the boys raise their hands, and I wait a moment and I say, girls, look. And then I say, how many of you will marry her? And not a single hand goes up. And I go, girls, look, this is not empowerment. They're selling you a lie. Education.
They're selling you a lie. They're selling you a lie to make it easier to have sexual access to women, because
exactly. All about
it's more
agenda.
women. It's all about their agenda and just making it easier to sexually access women. But then they don't want those women when it comes to who they choose to marry or to settle down with them.
They don't want the woman they've damaged.
Yeah, basically, in a nutshell. In a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm angry. I'm angry at the world for this shit, okay? I'm angry. When I was being trafficked, I used to say, why me, why me? When I got out, I went and got some education, and I learned through education how and what happened to me, and through great self-introspection why, so that I can do this work. And I think that's how we all got here, all of us, is so that this should happen to us so we can do the work.
Yeah. I think we should go take violence into consideration. I am so I know I'm gonna be jailed someday. Like the men in black suits gonna come for me. But I'm not saying okay, I'm joking. But we know that the judicial system is not written for us. It's not written for women. It's written to help men get off with things. I'm sounding like a lunatic because I am so brought up to always defend the justice system, to always defend the structures that are set in place to protect us. But I'm 41 now, and it's case after case after case. It's not protecting us. It's not even protecting children. It's not what it's supposed to do. And that's all over it. We have to do something really. I think that for me, I just want to say to the whole world that we need to denounce that and say that this is non-negotiable.
So Merly, where I live, the community did a survey. The only place the children feel safe is in their bedrooms because of these men trolling around at night. So I say to them at the John School, why the hell is your dick allowed to make children that you don't even know afraid? What the hell? So you know what? Your violence, I don't have too much of a problem with that either, okay?
As long as it's like focused violence. Like the suffragettes. We talked about that the last episode where they would, I'm not saying I'm going to do it again, don't come for me, but they went in and I think we talked about how they blew up buildings, empty buildings where there was no one inside. In one case, one man died and they were very sorry about that. But here's the thing. We need to stop asking. And we need to find ways to stop asking.
Yes.
Because if we don't do that, nothing's going to change.
Yes.
We are like with prostitution. I love to say that, we have all this research now. I read about, and Ali, if you can help me here, because me and names and today is a little bit of a bad day, but the first Communist Congress in 1917, there's this long speech from a woman talking about the dangers and harmfulness of prostitution. This is over 100 years ago, and I know that we knew way more back then with all the things, but we have always known. So we need to stop asking and find ways to stop asking.
Yeah.
And also the same thing with money. Also the same thing with because when we talk now, we're like, women need to do this, women need to do this, women need to do that. We have people already paid in place to do those things.
Yeah.
Why are they not being done?
Yeah.
Sweden embarked on the Nordic model law, implemented it barely in 1999. Up until the Me Too movement in 2000, I want to say 17, 18. We had three places where that was connected to social services in the whole of Sweden, where you could go and talk, and especially that were governmentally, state funded. They don't give a shit. It said in the reports that we were, I think, in one report that I read, it said that there were maybe 300 women in prostitution in Sweden. Okay, we're not a big country, but where did you get that from? 300. And so I started asking, and I didn't quit. I started asking everyone that I met, professors, blah, blah, blah. And I finally got an admission from one person who shall remain nameless, that it was all made up.
Yeah.
They didn't have the data. They haven't done any research. There was someone sitting there like, 300. It was also said in many reports that domestic prostitution were not harmful. The only harmful thing was trafficking. He also used sex lobby organizations as references. We have a long way to go, but I have been very inspired by a man named Donald Trump. That you can create a lot of shit during a very short period of time. Now, not wanting to do anything of that disgusting blob that he does, reminding people that when they say, change needs to take time. No, it doesn't.
No.
Changing people's minds might take longer time, but changing laws, changing how they rule in courtrooms, where the framework that they have to work within, that doesn't have to take time. Redistributing society's social network to actually help and not just lock away our girls and women doesn't have to take time. There's no reason for that.
Nope.
So again, thank you, Donald. I every day die. But yeah.
So we were talking about Epstein in 2008. I think he was convicted. So he was had up on pedophilia and having sex with minors, raping minors. Okay, but he was only convicted. And there's a whole, if you go and look at the story of how that happened, it's too long for here. But he was only convicted of solicitation of sex from a minor, okay, in 2008. So prior to that, everybody knew what was going on. He was convicted, did a little bit of time, and got out. The day after he got out, Fergie, Andrew's wife,
Oh my God, boo.
took her 2 daughters and had lunch with him. So all of these people, Woody Allen, all of them were still associating and hanging and thinking this guy was great after he'd done time for that. Now, having said that, that's 2008. In 2019, he killed himself. So for all of those years, all of these people knew without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, knew what he was doing and still chose to associate with him and uphold him and uplift him and sing his praises.
Yeah,
This is systemic.
Yeah.
This is
Bugsby, the guy that ran the civil lawsuit against P. Diddy. He held a press conference and where they were talking about P. Diddy's victims, of course, and now the civil suit. But he also said that 42 individuals have, after they've been abused by Diddy, gone directly to both police and hospital.
Yep.
And no, can you imagine having 42 people going into the police station during a period of, I think, was 10 years, and not a single case was picked up? We need to talk about the corruption of the judicial system, the police corruption. We have had the same thing in Sweden. I think it was 3 years ago where a news broadcaster made a deep dive into the rape kits that the police never send, which it was a lot.
Yeah.
We don't send them.
Thousands.
I think it's the same thing all over the world.
Yeah.
They don't send them because they don't care. They don't think it's a crime and they don't want to be hassled with it. They don't want to spend money on it. I'm not saying that every police individual is the same. We have police that are fighting the system, who are fighting corruption, but as a structure, they're not working with us. They're working against us.
So Epstein wasn't killed or didn't kill himself because he raped children. He died because he was going to potentially out other men. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Caroline, I need you to come back to the episode where we discuss, and also Savannah, Sybil, you will be there, I know that, where we discuss whether or not he's actually dead or and Ghislaine is actually in prison. That is a whole other episode. We're not going to do that now. But I mean, hairs on my arm have stood up.
Yeah.
So sorry, continue.
Well, he wasn't had up for crimes against. He wasn't. Yeah, I think you get the gist of what I'm saying, okay? It wasn't about the children. People were concerned that he was going to out them. And we go deeper because now we know that Epstein the whole thing was a honeypot, and that Andrew, Trump, and all of them were trapped in this honeypot and were being blackmailed. I mean, there's more to it than just the crimes against the children. This is international. It's world politics. It's world changing. I mean, we're looking at it. As far as I'm concerned, the war in Iran is to distract from the files. My opinion, and I know a lot of other people agree, but people are dying now to protect those files. People in other countries dying to protect those files. What the hell? What the hell? What the hell?
Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, it's bizarre. Well, they are doing blanket bombing in Iran.
Yeah,
blanket bombing is pretty much where you just bomb the whole area. People are dying by the thousands.
I know people. I met people here in Canada. They're living there right now. Okay, and this, as far as I'm concerned, is a distraction for the Epstein files.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that speaks to the really the power of women understanding how this works.
Yeah.
And I think men already understand it. And I loved that anecdote, Caroline, about the high schoolers and the boys all raising their hands. And the boys know, they get it. The girls live in a different reality. They live in the reality of decency that we pretend to live in, where, you know, of course, everybody agrees that this shouldn't happen. We live in a civilized society.
No, we don't.
And I think that's the power of survivor stories, is we've been on the front lines and we can tell the women who haven't experienced it yet, if they will open their ears and open their hearts to understanding the way the world really works. Because the men know how it really works. And that's why he didn't kill himself because he had committed crimes. They don't believe it is crime. It's their religion. It's where their power comes from. And again, in every level, whether it's at governmental or corporation or church, religious organizations or families, it goes all the way through. So you no matter where you're standing, you can look around. And I think that's what women don't want to do, because it will tear your life as you knew it down. And we have to learn how to tolerate that and move through it.
So, you know what's not being talked about enough? And I'm going to come back to this. It's something called non-state torture. Okay. Rape is torture. I'm working with a woman. Okay. No names again. She was kept in a dog cage, cut from her anus to her vagina and made to eat what came out. Okay. This is torture. It's non-state torture, and it's not on the legal books. It should be, and it should be an added extra charge. Traffickers torture when they beat. It's intentional. This kind of torture is intentional, and it's not state run. It's domestic. It's the domestic violence abusers do it. Jeffrey Epstein was torturing those girls. I've been through some of those files. I don't know how many of you have seen. There was one picture of a naked girl, a young girl, face covered, lying held down on a grass lawn with magnifying glasses held on her genitals, and they were burning her. Okay. This is non-state torture, and no one's being convicted for it. No one's even being charged for it. It needs to be on everybody's radar, this torture.
But I think that's what we're saying it is. And it's legal.
Yeah, well, it needs to not be. And people aren't recognizing it as torture, though. They're not. They're just saying it's sexual violence. But it's torture. It's just, and it matters because sexual violence is, it's banal. It's people, she got raped. I'm so sorry to hear that. And then they carry on with the conversation. Okay. It's normalized for us. At one time in my life, I didn't know a single woman who had not been raped. It's our reality. So it's not a big deal, right? But it needs to be, and this torture thing needs to be back on people's radar. I mean, I'm sorry, I feel very strongly about this. I really do.
Stop apologizing, please. Oh my gosh, your rage is what we need. I mean, it's fuel, right? Mary Daly talks about this. Raging furies, and spinning rage, and using that momentum to propel forward. And like you said, Merly, change can happen very quickly. And again, no matter where you're standing, change politically and on that level, but also in your own life. Like, we can make radical decisions to live our lives differently.
Well, you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way. And that's just another simple, basic fact. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
But the will has to be there.
We have to build that will.
Indeed.
Yeah. I want to see if you can see my t-shirt. It says,
we can stop
human trafficking.
Yes.
I don't know if it's properly, but I thought it was apropos for this podcast. Listen, yes. I am sorry, but I have to run. I have to go to a memorial for a woman who was murdered by a customer.
Yeah, I know you had time restriction, and I think that we have been going now for 1.5 hours almost.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of us and a lot of our listeners are, we have fed ourselves to the top where maybe we can't even be reciprocated to take in more.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
But it's been such a good discussion, everyone, and thank you so much, Sybil Jo, Merly, and especially Caroline, for sharing your thoughts. I think this live stream was needed, and I think anger is a good thing, especially as women. When we get angry, we actually change things. Unlike men, we don't go around hurting people. We essentially organize to bring about systemic change. So do hold on to that anger to this fuel.
Yeah. And even if this was a really heavy subject, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure, an honor, and a joy to have you here, Savannah, and Caroline, and Sybil Jo. I want us to do this again soon. Sit down
Definitely.
and have a continued conversation about this.
I love you guys.
Love you.
Love
Thank you.
Bye.
This has been.
Thanks all.
This
I
has
just real
been.
quick wanted to. Oh, she's gone.
She needed to run, I think, because
Yes,
yeah.
she had to go. Before we close out, I was gonna say, I was gonna thank Caroline for all of the work that she does, and I really hope that
Yeah.
she is able to join us some more. This
Yeah,
is
she is. Yeah.
this. I love this format. I love these live streams, and we can really like explore ideas through bouncing off of each other in a way that I think the more formal episodes don't have as much room for. Before we close out, would y'all feel comfortable having a moment of silence for Caroline's
Yeah, of course.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a lovely
departed
idea.
friend, and for all of the, I think us survivors have a lot of friends
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
aren't here, and
I think that was a very good idea. So let the silent moment commence. Thank you so much.
thank you. I'm
We'll
so
stay.
filled with gratitude.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion. That was a lovely suggestion, Sybil. And yes, our thoughts go
Yeah.
to Caroline and her friend's family and all those women around the world. Some of us who they're still with us, but also the ones who aren't with us due to sexual violence.
Yeah. We'll stay in touch and keep planning next episode. This has been.
Let us,
Sorry.
before we go, let us let people know where they can donate. Let us ask for money.
Yes. Can you do that? Because I feel like my game of broadcasting.
I can, but I actually don't know.
Okay.
Ellie,
So Ellie,
put in the chat where we can
donate. Yes.
I don't know if she's.
I'm sure it's on our webpage.
Yeah, it's
Let's
not.
say
It was there today. It's on our webpage.
click
we
through.
always-
You guys, we love doing this. We love hanging out with you, and we want to grow. We want to bring in more guests, and we want to be able to, support each other.
Yeah, it's
There it is. She sent the link. redlightexpose.com/donate.
Yeah. So are we ready to sign off? Are we ready to sign off? Yes.
I think I'm done.
But it was a very good.
Oh wow.
Please help us so we can do more. I'd say.
I hope you can make it some more, Savannah. I haven't gotten to talk to you a whole lot, but you're always bringing in a different perspective that it adds a lot. I appreciate.
Thank you, and it's been really, really nice chatting with you both. Sybil Jo and Merly on this live stream. We should, like you say, definitely do it more often. It's good to be behind the microphone again. It's been a while for me, so
That's nice to hear, because this won't be your last time. So thank you. This is Red Light Expose Live signing off. Thank you for listening. Keep following us and keep an eye out for our next episode. And take care out there. Stay safe.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.